Hello, and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. I have another fellow Aussie today. I'm welcoming to the show Lloyd Thompson, Aussie / originally from the UK.
Yes, and I think I've got a bit of an Australian accent now. I don't know how many people can detect that I am actually English, but
Really?
yeah, here we are. You can, okay, good. It's funny if it's a Monday. I think I sound more English because I've been talking to my folks over the weekend
Fair enough.
on WhatsApp and whatever, and picking up the accent. But
yeah,
Friday I sound Australian. So
yeah, true. Well, you're sipping on tea though. Like I've got
how British?
I've got a coffee, and you're like, I'm on my tea, and I'm like, how very English of you. Although I do love a good tea.
And I have a big teapot here. I mean, now the stereotypes are coming out.
Yeah, totally. Lloyd, how has the start of your week been?
It's been good. Actually, I've been to the gym, and that is a win for me because you're thinking, why is he talking about that? But for me, I started this business. I had more time to do things and, really be location flexible and pick and choose when I work and so forth. And, I've got a young son now and he's in childcare. So I can now start working off my dad bod. So winning today.
Yeah, totally. Because you've got a little 1-year-old, Marcus, and your partner, she's back at work as well full-time.
She's back at work, yeah. So it's been a bit of a transition the last few weeks. When my wife goes back to her corporate role and the child goes to childcare and he gets used to that. And then everybody gets sick because he goes and picks up all of these new and exciting viruses. Now we're in a rhythm, touch wood. So it's an exciting new time.
Nice. And are you enjoying the new rhythm? Was it like
I love it.
The transition?
And, of course, it was a challenge when we were all sick. But my son has now come back. He's got into the rhythm with childcare and he now feels like you can see he's enjoying it. And he comes back from that and he's playing with his toys. And it's just like we're all fine again, Yeah. But when he first was getting dropped off there, it was like that. If you're a first-time parent, this is a new learning curve. So I think we're all in a groove now.
Yeah, good one. Good one. Well, we can come back to parent because there's probably like a lot of similarities between being a parent and a founder and a leader. And I'm sure you've got a few, like you can adapt in both spaces. And there's probably what you can borrow from being a parent versus what you can borrow from being a founder. So let's get on into it, Lloyd. I should also say a big shout out to all the listeners here today with us as we're having some fabulous conversations, so many consistent themes coming up. And it's kind of funny how the Formless works in terms of, I had someone earlier on today and we were talking a lot about, what was it? Radical delegation, a lot about leadership. And I feel like we're going to have quite the conversation around leadership, efficiency, and all of that human connection. And so it's funny how things are just from the Formless, things form. And so there's almost like all these different formless conversations that happen. And then they seem to form into these
taking shape
into these little hives. So anyway, there's lots of ideas coming up for me as well with regards to that. But let's get on into it, Lloyd, because you're the founder of VirtualDOO. Is that how I did it? Is that right?
Yeah. DOO stands for Director of Operations. Yep. And I've recently got some new merch, hence the cap.
I love it. I want to get some Be Formless hats, so I'll have to ask you.
Shout out to Super Merch, who I got these from. I'm super happy with the merch he sent me.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like the shape of the hat. So
yeah, it's like a fisherman's hat. It's my style.
Yeah, it is. It's great. So, like I said, you are the founder of Virtual. Say it again.
DOO. VirtualDOO.
Yeah. God, I keep going to say. And essentially, it's a fractional chief operating officer company that helps founder-led service businesses build the operational foundations to scale beyond founder dependency. Wow, that is always a charm, isn't it? The founder dependency. An important inflection point emerged for you, Lloyd, when you recognize that sustainable growth isn't created through systems alone. Couldn't agree more. It comes from leaders who are willing to lead authentically, build the teams around shared values, and create businesses that no longer rely on them for every decision. That insight reshaped your approach to operations, placing equal importance on people, leadership, and execution. And today, Lloyd, you and the team partner with growing service businesses to simplify operations, strengthen leadership teams, and create the clarity, structure, and accountability needed for business to grow beyond the founder. at the heart and soul of your work is a belief that while AI will continue to transform how business operates, emotional intelligence, human intelligence, authenticity, and of course, connection will become the qualities that define the leaders people choose to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong. When we caught up the other week, you had some surf thing going on in COVID, or have I lost completely?
No, you've got it. Yeah, that was, well, I don't know how far we want to go here, but that was the beginning of this business.
Yeah, okay. So let's start there because I do vividly remember that conversation. I didn't factor that into your bio. Let's start there because I'd love to, let's
go there. All right. So in my but how does surfing and my business and I guess my past life and corporate all come together? I'll probably start then with corporate. So in my corporate role, I was looking after large teams of people and globally. So I'd have an onshore team, an offshore team, and around the world. And in the last few roles I was doing, we were putting in trading systems and payment systems for banks and investment banks. And I enjoyed my work, but I'd been in corporate forever. And what changed in my life and where surfing comes into this is in my hobby life, I am a surfer. And probably about 2 years before the COVID lockdown occurred, I'd started giving a hobby surf report. I would run down a beach in the morning, take photos of the beach on Instagram, upload them onto Instagram, leave a little surf forecast, and I had a little audio report I would do for a few friends on WhatsApp. And then what happened in the COVID lockdown was my little WhatsApp group suddenly blew up. And I would have 150 people listening into my 30-second audio report every day. And it was just a passion project. It's not a financial thing. This is just for fun.
Yeah.
And also in parallel with this, I've now got time to go surfing every day before work. That was a big change for me in COVID. Lifestyle change. And then at the same time, I've got this little hobby surf report. And one of the people who was following my surf report was a well-known business coach called James Schramko. And I should say that he was well-known, but he wasn't really well-known to me because I was in corporate. I didn't know anything about business coaches and business coaches and business coaching. But I saw that he was following me on Instagram. I saw that he was a talking head on Instagram, which is ironically, I do a lot of this talking head pieces of advice on Instagram now. And I said to him, hey, you're a business coach. I don't want to go back to a brightly lit office after COVID. My team today in my corporate role, they're working fine remotely. Long before COVID happened, I'd been able to get them off desktop. So I had a very lenient work from home policy with my team that were onshore. My team that were offshore were used to me not being a line of sight manager. We could keep things running smoothly. So I was thinking about what kind of business could I start where I can be working fully remote, time flexible. What could that be? I don't know. I wasn't in the business world. And so I asked this business coach, James Schramko, and that was the beginning of a lot of conversation. So that's where my surfing hobby connected with my now job, because those conversations that happened with James translated into, well, I think you could do operations fractionally for people. I think, your skills of being able to help people get operations running smoothly is a skill that would be very desirable for some of my customers. And I was at a point where I felt like I'd been born in a corporation. I just straight out of uni, in fact, even throughout uni, I was working for IBM. And then after uni, I was working for Accenture and so forth and so forth. And I'm very grateful for all of those experiences, but I think I was ready for something else. And so at some point, he said why don't you just talk to one of these guys who's a big e-commerce business owner in Vancouver, team of about 25 maybe, doing over 25 million a year in revenue. But the founder was scattergunning the team with tasks every day for 16 hours until he was exhausted. And he did not know how to get himself out of doing that.
Yeah.
And while I wasn't an expert on e-com, I knew I could get him out of that. And so long story short,
the rest is history.
Yeah, that was the beginning. I quit my job even before I had anything lined up. I was ready to take a gamble. I didn't have any major liabilities or risks or anything. I had some savings, and if it didn't work out, I was prepared to go contracting anyway. And that was the beginning of my business.
Wow. What a great story. Do you think, taking you right back to surfing, and being the ability to, during COVID, wake up every morning and go surfing, do you think that changed your flow in terms of when you were surfing, there's a real science behind accessing flow state where you're, in this effortless, if you think about when you get up in the morning, right, and you start your day and the first thing you're doing is getting a cup of tea or you're pouring a coffee or whatever, checking what you've got to do for work that day, your brain is just straight into it, and there's no room for getting into flow state where the ideas just come at you effortlessly. You're feeling your best. You get these different perspectives.
Yes.
Do you think that was one of the biggest contributors to you going, I don't want to do this anymore. This is BS. This is bullshit. And surfing got you into flow state to enable you to then make the decisions that were probably subconsciously sitting there.
Yeah, I think that surfing definitely does get me into flow state. And it's also making sure that there is dedicated white space in your calendar. And for me, that was in the morning doing surfing. And now, since my son has been born, I haven't been so regimented about going surfing every day. But now I've got that time to walk him to childcare and look at the beach and then plan my surf, which is hopefully in the afternoon. But my point is that forced white space gives you time to where you're not in your phone and you're not in your email and you can't see the wood through your trees when you're doing those things. It gives you that space to be able to think about it. And so surfing has been a large part of being able to reflect without being distracted. And it's a great thing that there's no way I'm connected into my meetings if I'm in the surf. In fact, you're just thinking about, I'm about to get clobbered by a big wave, so I better focus on that. And in some crude way, it's a form of meditation.
That's what I feel like after our pod today, I'm actually going to go and do a hot flow yoga class, because again, it's like meditation for me. And I find when you go into those situations that you might have a problem or you might have something on your mind, and all of a sudden when you go into those, like whether it's surfing or whatever it is, there's this ability, just things just download and you're able to then go, okay, there it is, there's the answer.
And I can't remember who said this, but there's a thing that if you have a question that you want solved or a problem you want solved, if you think about it before you go to bed at night, you quite often wake up in the morning and your brain has done some kind of the thinking to get that solved. And I feel like the same thing happens when you go surfing or do meditation or do yoga or those things. So I do think that it does get you into the flow state, and it does help you advance what's happening in your life, in your personal life and in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about that then, in terms of the founder dependency and what then causes the friction from scaling. What are you seeing? What are you seeing as the most critical, the biggest frictions right now when it comes to founders in founder-led service businesses?
So the very particular type of founders that I tend to help the most are, I'll call them visionary founders. And so I find a lot of them in marketing agencies and e-commerce. They are very outward product focused. They might be good at sales and marketing. They might be good at products. They're very creative. So that's what I mean by visionary. And the challenge I think a lot of these folks find is a strength where people like me is, we complement each other. The visionaries are really good at coming up with ideas, but their challenge is they might want to spin 100 plates, but end up not cooking any of them, because they just see so many things. Whereas someone who is operations focused is more focused, not so much on the creativity, but we like creating order. And these things can quite often destroy the soul of the visionary. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in creating operational rhythms, dashboards, and feedback loops. That's not their thing. They'd prefer to be focusing on what's the next thing we're going to build? What's the next relationship? Who are we going to partner with next? That's what they're focused on. And so being able to have someone who can come in with them, partner with them in their business. And in my case, it's on a month-to-month basis. So we'll come in, look at where their operational gaps are, build them a plan to get so they can get out of doing the operations, because their pain is that they are stuck doing all the things. They're stuck in operations when they prefer to be outward looking and building their vision and having that executed rather than being in all of the weeds.
Yeah, I find it soul destroying. I call it soul destroying when I'm in that. And I'm feeling like I'm a bit in it at the moment in terms of just all this stuff that you're just like, this is not where I'm at my best.
That's not your zone of genius. So
no, it's not. And I guess my question to you is why do founders find themselves or visionaries find themselves in these spaces? Like, do you think it's a control thing? What is it? Or is it like because it's their baby? I question myself at times around it going,
Yeah, there's a few things there. I mean, one is some people aren't good at letting go of the reins, and letting go of the reins requires quite a bit of trust. So if you have your team and you've never felt that the classic is no one can do it like the founder. I do a task, I do it to a certain level. If I give it to someone, I don't know if they're going to get it done well. And what happens is a lot of founders end up delegating tasks instead of delegating outcomes. So they'll say, here's the task, here's what it looked like. And they spend their time in delegating task mode. And so it's like that founder I talked about in the beginning. He would be spending 16-hour days handing out lots and lots of tasks to lots and lots of people. That doesn't work.
Exhausting for the team. I used to have a founder, like a partner like that. I just couldn't keep up. I'd be
going to burn out eventually.
Well, I did. Like, bless him, but I did, because it was just erratic. It was chaotic I was constantly trying to organize it.
Yeah. And I think there's lots of things that can be done, but one of them is being able to help them delegate outcomes. And that requires on them having a good team that can receive outcomes. So that might be appointing someone who's in charge of sales. And instead of saying, these are all the sales tasks you're going to work on, this is going to be, okay, we're going to measure success by how many of the leads that you convert into sales. And it might be, here's a person in charge of marketing. Okay, we're going to measure how many of these opportunities relate into booked calls with sales, and so on and so on. But then underneath that, the person in charge of that can choose their own adventure. They can be an artist. They can decide how they want to go and implement those things. And so that sounds great to a founder, but they're like, well, maybe I don't have those people in my team. And so for someone like us to come in, we can work and we can coach that team, and then we can see, well, are they the right people in the long term? Are they in the right role? But of course, we want to be able to upskill the team best we can, set them up for success, let them be artists in their role around their outcome. But if they ultimately need to change the setup of the team, we can help the founder do that too.
And what do you think constitutes a good team? Like, in terms of, now that there's AI in play, it's not just a human team anymore. It's a mixed team. It's a hybrid team. What does that look like? And what constitutes a high performing team?
So it depends how you want to measure success. And so for my success, it might differ from someone else's success. And I know that I want to attract the type of clients who determine success the same way as me. And so this sounds very abstract, but I'll go there now. So for me, I want to be able to work with people who I enjoy talking to, who I can have a sense of humor with. I want to have a team and work so that we're not in operational chaos. So I will choose when I take something on to make sure we can do it well and we're not flapping. And I will choose to partner with people who I enjoy talking to and turn away work where I know that won't happen. So actually, just 2 weeks ago, I got offered a very lucrative client, and they're doing millions a month comfortably. So they're doing very well. But I could sense through the conversations that this was going to be a client where I don't think we were going to be aligned. And what I mean by that is they have a culture which I see quite commonly, and I might be unfair to our American friends now, but in the East Coast of the US, I see this kind of dictator style of management, and it's very popular there. It's not all the East Coast. I've got some very great clients over there too, but I know that if you're going to go with the dictator style of client or management rather, that's not going to be a good client for us.
No.
And so I could see that through our conversations with that client or potential client, that was going to be the kind of management that they were expecting us, how we're expecting to execute to get stuff done. And I just knew that through no amount of convincing, I was going to be able to get this guy to see the light. And so we didn't take it on, and it could have been incredibly profitable for us. But I chose having the right clients with the right values that we align to over profit. And so that's me. Some people will prefer to the pain and get the money, but for me, it
comes at a cost, though, don't you think? Like, what you're talking about here is transactional versus relational. And I was having this very conversation earlier with one of my podcast guests in terms of knowing when to drop the mic, I call it, like just the ability to walk away because and I've done the opposite before where I've taken on clients or continued with clients that have basically decimated it's been highly lucrative. It's decimated the culture though on the team because it was just this, we're a supplier mentality, and I can't stand that. That's why I don't like love the word service either, because it doesn't like it just doesn't feel like it's equal, if that makes sense. And I think that, you know, it's important that you have the right energy, attitude, and behavior, and that it goes both ways to get the best results as well. Like,
I completely agree. I think those clients out there, or those businesses that are out there who think that the dictator style of management leads to high performance is short-sighted. And I really believe that you do get high performance actually when you have a different style of management. And in my style of leading and management, it's more based on transparency and values. So even if I see that there are challenges that are coming up to light, rather than go with the stick approach to management, rather than going with that style, I would prefer to let sunlight be the disinfectant and show people what I'm seeing, whether that's through numbers, like these are the numbers, this is what I'm seeing, or observation, that this is what I'm seeing, how would you see it, what would you do if you were me? And a coaching Socratic method, rather than this is the way or the highway, you know, I'm going to use fear to motivate you to do something. I just don't think that works in the long term. You're holding people hostage to do stuff rather than charming them or bringing them towards you in a place that they enjoy working.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just on that, are you seeing more inefficiency than ever in terms of in businesses that you're going into? Like when you're being called in, just with, again, all the noise out there, all the various tools, is there more chaos than ever, or is there more just confusion, if that makes sense?
So I would say that for the founders that I'm working with, and they're successful business owners, but something like AI is creating even more distraction.
Yeah.
So these high visionary business owners tend to be distracted by shiny objects, the new tools and all of these things, and they can't help but get their creative brains in there. And so a lot of these folks are then going and trying to develop an AI thing with OpenClaw or Claude or whatever, and doing a lot of things themselves when they should be handing off to a team to get things done. Even if you do want those capabilities, you should be creating a who, not how in there and saying, hey, you build the thing and you maintain it. These are where my ideas go. So I'm seeing there is just as much noise as there's always been, but there's probably more of it because people are getting more and more digital disruption than they've ever had before. I mean, AI has created the ability now to my inbox is flooded with more email than I've ever seen before. I'm getting more DMs on social media than I've ever seen before.
I know, it's like what I feel like. I wake up every morning, and again, you're international too, right? You wake up and you go and check stuff and you're like, holy shit, like there's just like, what am I trying to get through here? Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of like, and what requires a response, what doesn't. It is getting crazier. I want to come back to visionary, versus efficient, and in terms of, do you think that visionaries have, as much as they've got all these ideas, do you think they're battling also from a strategic perspective, or is it more that they know where they're going from a North Star? What are you seeing in that space as well, like or is it just based on just everything we've just been talking about then?
Most of the visionaries that I work with do have a kind of North Star there, and I say kind of, and quite often it means that we need to help them articulate it. I've certainly worked with, I work with a very successful SEO business owner, and he had a very clear vision about where he wanted the business to go. The problem was it was in his head, and his team aren't psychic. So getting him to create a vivid vision, and it's very easy to create these days with something like AI. You can just talk into the program and say, now articulate it and ask me these questions. But to create something that the team can go, that's where we're heading, is really helpful. But a lot of the time it's in their head and it's loose, or they've got so many priorities that actually when you have so many priorities, there is no real priority. So having somebody who can partner with them and say, okay, right, let's work out what the real bang for buck activities are. Right, 1, 2, 3. Right, that's the things we're going to cook this week and get done. Or where do you want to end up? What's the real vision? And the example of, if I go to that SEO business owner, his vision was, when I asked him, it was about silver platter, white glove service with a few customers, very high ticket, very high quality, very high touch. But then when we look at what the team are trying to implement, they're trying to implement for throughput and get as many customers as they can. And so, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Okay, that's the vision. Right. So now let's work with the team and say, right, well, perhaps we need to look at changing how we implement some of these products now. And that can affect the pricing, of course, but a much higher quality. So that's generally where we actually start. We generally start with the vision, because if we don't know what their vision is, we're likely to end up someplace else, and then distill that down to priorities and so forth.
It's so important, isn't it? It's almost like it's a reminder to take everyone on the journey, right? You might have this long, big, wafty North Star vision, purpose, whatever you want to call it. And I know at times I've had in my head, I know where I'm going. And then it's almost like everyone's I'm looking at them hurry up, come on, and next thing I know, it's oh, actually, I've had it pointed out. Have you taken them on the journey?
Yeah.
And so it's that constant reminder that as founders, we have to stop and it's about coming back to being present and looking at where we're at right now, because I think also the other big thing I'm noticing, and no doubt you are too, is that there's this race at the moment. There's this speed to get to the next step or the next whatever, or create something new, whereas it really just needs to be what is in front of us right now.
Yeah, what's actually important out of all of this stuff, what's really going to move the needle the most.
Yeah.
And that's where we're helping them do that level of thinking. And I think when I talk to a business owner and I talk about vision and values, they might think, yeah, that's soft and fluffy stuff. But if they don't know where they're going, they're going to end up someplace else. And then the other thing, values as well, is really important. And what I normally do is I help them create a vision document. And it's so easy, as I said, with AI now. You can just answer a load of questions, and then it will help you create that document. And quite often that's the blocker for this visionary founder, in that they think, I'm going to be the blocker, I'm going to have to create and do all these things, but I could just talk to them for 20 minutes and ask them the questions and then throw the transcript in AI and it will just create one for you, and so that's a starting point. And I usually then help them put the values in that. And you think, well, what's so important about values? I've seen all of these cliche things written up all over the corporate walls. Do they actually mean anything? But if they're done well, they're used for hiring the people that are the right fit for you and your business. And they're used for attracting and repelling clients. So I know for me, and this one might sound a little bit silly, but one of my values in my business is heart and humour, right? So I know that the people I want to work with, I want to be able to have a laugh and a joke with them. It's going to be fun. And I want them to be empathetic. There's plenty of folks out there who will be able to look at an org chart and see the structure and see what's missing, or do the analysis. But can they have an empathetic conversation? How good are they at listening? So that's really important to me. But it's also important then to use as a filter for the kind of clients I want to work with. So straight away, that same value eliminated that client that I could have worked with who was making millions of dollars a month, because I know that heart and humor is not a part of that business.
Yeah, totally. I agree. For me, it's inside out way of working. It's I always talk about and think about, how do you put your values into action? Values need to be applied inside and then outside with the client partner that you're working with. And what are the synergies with their values and your values? I always look at that too and understand their values, and is there any connections and synergies? Because if you have a whatever it takes type mentality, whatever it takes can mean something very different to hard.
Yeah, who's going to get burnt along the way?
Yeah. Tell me just quickly, look, so you're clearly an organizer, efficiency, operations. How do you then juggle it all with wife back at work, little one? And the reason I ask this is because I'm one of those people that's super organized at work or in business, as much as sometimes I get myself in my own way because I have too many ideas, see the little person there.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to my personal life, I am never on time. I seem to everything just is a little bit more, and I think that's a bit about my personality in terms of I don't want everything to be completely ordered and structured. How do you juggle it?
There's a few things there. So the first thing is just broadly who, not how. So in my business, when I started my business, and by the way, that's the title of the book, Who Not How. It was.
That's the title of your thumbnail. I keep getting all these bots telling me your thumbnails are wrong, and I'm like, you don't understand what I'm doing. I'm getting the thumbnails verbally from my guests.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who wrote the book. Dan Sullivan, and there's another guy who wrote the book, but I'm being really Dr. Benjamin Hardy. There you go, Who Not How. So that is about. So when I started my business, it was me with my first client being on a fractional retainer. Fractional, an exotic word for part-time, part-time retainer. And then I took on another client. So I then was really busy. And then when I took on another client, suddenly I knew I wouldn't be able to handle 4 clients. So I had hired someone to handle that client. And now I'm not doing the delivery directly for any clients. So that is the who, not how. I've hired people and they handle those things, which means I then pick up the next baton, right? So I do a bit of internal management for my team. I also, fortunately, I employ people who are really good at operations. So I've got one of my people in my team to look at operations across my team, which is a trade. I could do that myself, but I'm trading time for money. And in my case, it's money for time. I'm saying I'll help this person will do more operations, but I will have more time. So who, not how is a strong part of that. The other part of it is scheduling. So we talked about it earlier about the importance of white space and just having that time to think, whether it's surfing. So today, the big win for me was going to the gym. And so I write down, actually I do it the night before, I'll write down the big 3 to 5 things I'm going to do the next day. And one of those things will be the gym, yoga or surfing or something like that. And I want to see that scratched off because that will feel like a win. And I intentionally schedule in life things as well as business things. So when I look at my list, that 3 to 5 things of big items, that's not all business. Yeah, some of those things would be do this thing with my wife and with my child, or attend this, attend that. So it's really comes down to planning. It doesn't make it sound very exciting, but I think having a think about the night before what you're going to win on the next day is really powerful. It kind of goes into that subconscious, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Programming your subconscious before you go to sleep. So I'll write down the priorities in my evening for the next day, and they're just sat there brewing. And then there's a good level of satisfaction in just striking through to one big thing.
See my notebook. I love a good strike through, and when I don't have strike throughs, I'm like, what's going on here? Like I start to feel a little out of control in terms of there's nothing better than having a list and being able to, I break it into high value, low value, and it's business, life, all of that, because I think it's so important and you can't separate the two. I don't care what anyone says, life-work balance, it doesn't exist in my mind. Balance is, nothing's balanced. It's, it's how you go with the flow with things,
And sometimes it doesn't always work out the plan. Like, yesterday is a great example. I won't go into the specific of it, but I had in my day plan, I was going to get these things done, and I get some level of satisfaction of going, yep. And then a couple of things came out of the blue in my personal life that weren't massive things. They just took up time. And so I'm like, okay, well, I have to do these things. So I get these things done, and so then it put me back on the big things that I really wanted to get checked off my list. But that's life. And I think you just have to realize that as a leader, it's not about actually getting all of the things done, because actually it's more about prioritizing and working out which things are really important. And in the age of all of the noise that we're going to have, all of the digital distraction, it's about constantly reprioritizing. And if you find that you've deprioritized something over a few days and it didn't make the top 3 to 5, you've got to look at that and go, well, did it really need attention in the first place?
Energy on it. I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's, to be fair, I'm talking about the stuff that belongs with me and I didn't delegate. And there's a great activity which I've used. It's an age-old idea called the Eisenhower matrix. And that's how I triage things. And it's really just a quadrant of, is it urgent and important? If it is, I'll do it right here, right now, myself. And if it's urgent and not important, delegate it, and so forth. And if it's not urgent, if it's not important, never do it, and that's a really well-known process. And so when I'm writing out my 3 to 5 for the next day, I'm thinking, are these things that I really need to do? Or should that belong with someone else? Should it be delegated, or should it just not be done at all?
It goes a long way, doesn't it, in terms of just, there's the 3 Ds as well, delegate, defer, and I can't think of the last D for the life of me.
Delete,
that's right.
Yeah.
One, like I used that with a client this morning. What do you need to delegate? What do you need to delete? What do you need to defer? And I think the other part for me is having a continuous finishing line. We have this tendency to come right back to North Stars and things like that in terms of we set something, or we set a task, an outcome, and we're aiming for it. And yet we don't actually put the continuous finishing line in place. And I think it's really important to do so, because it's like a win. I've hit that. I've finished. I've done that bit of the finishing line. And it's so that when you get to the actual final finishing line, it's actually quite an enjoyable process, because as you're going through the different parts of the finishing line, you also have this ability to adapt, pivot as you go. And it's like, whoa, what worked in that,
I have another book for you then, which talks about exactly this. And funnily enough, it's the same author who wrote Who Not How. And the book's called The Gap and the Gain. And the point of the book is we as entrepreneurs, we do set a North Star. We do set something in the horizon that we're heading towards. But but the problem is the horizon's always moving.
Yeah.
And so you don't ever, or it's very hard for you to go and really celebrate that win. And so what he said in that book is it's really important to always measure backwards. If you go and say, well, okay, where was I 5 years ago compared to now? Wow, look at the difference. Where was I 3 now? Where was I? And then you can see all the progress, and then that can guide you to the future. But always measuring backwards is where the satisfaction is. And then it is important to have goals in the future, but you just have to, and we certainly do that, but you just have to realize that quarterly goals are constantly going to move. And as entrepreneurs, that horizon is just going to move all the time. Explode. So the satisfaction comes out of measuring backwards.
Yeah, I love it. Final question for you, Lloyd. What would be your tip for any founder that was currently feeling like everything was out of control? Where would they start in terms of getting some order into the chaos? Or some organization into the chaos?
I'm going to throw out 2 tips, but they're not. But the second tip's not really related to the first. The first one really is who, not how. Like, do you have to do this? There's a great exercise that you can do, a time energy audit. And so if you were to open a spreadsheet on your desktop, and already to a lot of people that might sound really painful, but open it and leave it running for the next couple of weeks. So just don't close this tab. And every time you pick something up, put it in the spreadsheet. Like, what is this new task? Because what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing are not always the same.
No.
And so you end up with a list of tasks over a couple of weeks. And this doesn't have to be a pretty thing. This is just for you. And then as you go back through that data over a couple of weeks, then you can give a rough amount of time. This doesn't need to be exact, but what was it? Was it 15 minutes, half an hour, half a day, 2 days? So start kind of giving a time to some of these tasks. Like, how long are you really spending on it? So that's another element. And then the final element that you're going to do is highlight them red or green. Red as in, does this suck the life out of me? Or green, does this give me energy? And that's one that a lot of people ignore. And I've actually missed an element. The one element is if you were to give a value to this, where $1 symbol is very little,
money, the cost.
And then $3 symbols is like a lawyer, give it a rough kit. Don't put a number in there. Just put, $1, $3, $2 symbols. And so what that allows you to do is look objectively at your list. And so if it's a $1 low value admin task that sucks the life out of you, well, isn't that obvious? You could be getting someone in to handle that who would be delighted to take that off you, who's in a remote lower value location, who would be delighted to do that. And then if it's at the other end of the spectrum though, it might be a very expensive task. But if that task sucks the life out of you, wouldn't it be better to exchange that with something that gives you energy instead? And it sounds so obvious, but if so many people find that really illuminating when they go through that and they go, wow, actually I've given myself permission to get rid of some of these tasks and some of them suck the life out of me. So that's one tip. The other tip, maybe 2 months ago, I read a book that really changed my perspective. and it's called the Go-Giver. And the idea was, and it's a twist on the term the Go-Getter, but the term, the Go-Giver is really a kind of, and it's written for business owners, and it's the idea that if you give $1 million of value, and it doesn't have to be monetary, but if you give a lot of value, you do get that back. It doesn't have to, it's quite often doesn't come through the same way. But if you give a lot of value, you get a lot in return. And so I've got a daily Go-Giver task, and it might be to give a gift. It might be to give someone advice. And since I've been doing that as a business owner, I can tell you that it does come full circle.
Yeah.
But actually, from a state of mind perspective, since I write Go-Giver and I do my Go-Giver tasks every day, it is really satisfying to help somebody out, even if they're not expecting it.
Yeah,
that has been an amazing goal.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a change in perspective too, in terms of just this want, you know, like it's give back, and it's like, it comes back to like energy is money, you know, abundance flows. It's like action versus chasing. Do you know what I mean? So
and it doesn't always come back the same way. I bought this merch, you know, I'm really happy with it. And I've called him out on this podcast, and actually I saw him on his LinkedIn Super Merch the other day, just talking about he goes and inspects all this merch. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a review for that guy. I don't expect anything in return, but it was a good job. So I just wrote a review, really happy with this. So that was my Go-Giver task for me for the day. No one's watching, and I'm calling it out now. But that is something that I think is both going to help a business owner genuinely, but it will also help them with their mindset. So there's my top tips for today.
Lloyd, thank you so much. Incredible conversation. Lots of healthy tips here today. Like, love it. Words of wisdom, the whole lot. How to get into flow, as well as all these efficiency tips and tools. And just I think the biggest takeaway is, Go-Giver, and who, not how.
Who, not how. Yeah.
How I love that. I absolutely love it. How do we find out more about VirtualDOO?
Yeah. So you could head to virtualdoo.com, virtualdoo.com. And actually, I do have a very small book. It's on Amazon, but I give it away for free. So this is 9 ways to leave your day-to-day operations. I give it away for free as a PDF on my website. So if you go to virtualdoo.com/book, you can get the book for free.
Amazing. And we can also find you on LinkedIn.
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn.
And on Instagram with all your healthy
pictures of my dog there too, you know. Amazing. So there's another reason to find me on Instagram.
Lloyd, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the
conversation
today, and I'm wishing you a wonderful evening. I'm going to go and hit the hot flow yoga.
Hot the yoga. Get into it.
I can't wait, actually, just that warmth and just getting into some poses.
And you'll come back refreshed. Have a lovely...
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you so much, B. Cheers.
Thank you.